Hello, everybody. I'm Annalisa Caloffi. I'm an applied economist and I work in Italy, the University of Florence. My main line of research is about innovation policies and in particular the analysis and the evaluation of innovation policies implemented at different territorial scales. Innovation policy, broadly speaking, is also the topic of the paper I'm going to tell a few words about. The paper has been written with a couple of colleagues I usually work with, Margherita Russo from the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia, and Federica Rossi from the Birkbeck College, who's also affiliated to the CIMR. And the third author is Riccardo Righi from the JRC of the European Commission. In this paper, we look at the misalignments that sometimes can occur between the stated objectives of a policy and the way in which this policy is actually implemented on the ground. In particular, we focus on performance-based indicators that are defined by policymakers in order to monitor and to assess the performance of innovation intermediaries. And we analyze whether and to what extent these indicators are in line with the objectives of the policy. Maybe I need to say just a few words about innovation intermediaries, who they are. As it is known, these organizations support innovation in firms, and to do so, they provide firms with a variety of services. For instance, they provide firms with knowledge and technology checkups that can be used by firms in order to assess their strengths and weaknesses, and then finally to create their own innovation strategy. In several corners of the world, this organization receives some public funds in order to carry out their activity, and in particular, in order to help the more, let's say, innovation-reluctant firms or the more fragile firms in order to help them innovate. And at the same time, obviously, policymakers define some performance-based indicators in order to assess the performance of these innovation intermediaries that are receiving some public funds. Well, in an ideal world, these performance-based indicators could be perfectly capable of telling us all the relevant information of the behavior of the assessed organizations. For instance, they could tell us whether the innovation intermediaries have been able to engage the more fragile firms and to actually help them creating their own innovation strategy. However, it will be very likely that the policymaker will avoid using some concepts, some terms when they define their performance-based indicators that can be perceived as fuzzy. They will refrain, they will avoid to use concepts or terms such as fragile firms or knowledge lock-ins, or they will avoid speaking about learning processes. It's easier to monitor and to assess the performance of innovation intermediaries to simply count the number of firms that have received some support from the innovation intermediaries. Although even if this type of information is not telling us much about how the innovation intermediary behaved and what type of learning process it has triggered in the firms that it has supported. And this is what the paper is about. This is what the paper discusses, and it also discusses the fact that performance-based indicators, once they are in place, they are likely to influence the behavior of the assessed organizations. And when these indicators are not fully in line with the policy goals, they are likely to misguide somehow the assessed organizations. We realized this when we were about to evaluate regional innovation policy that was supporting the activity of innovation intermediaries. In particular, we discovered, for example, that there were a number of activities that the policy called for, but for which the policymaker did not define any specific indicator. Well, these activities were either not carried out at all by the innovation intermediaries, even if the policy required them to perform these activities, or they were performed, but they were not registered, they were not reported in any way to the policymaker, in the belief that they were not so important because no specific indicator had been defined in order to capture them. This is a typical example of what is not measured does not count, and this was a starting point of our reflection on the power of performance-based indicators. I need only one point, which is the most important one, which is that especially in the field of innovation policy, often the most difficult things to measure are the most interesting ones. We are very much interested in understanding how the vision of agents change as a result of a policy, or what type of learning processes has been triggered by the policy. So it would be useful to make an effort toward defining more complex short-term indicators. They are as closely aligned with the policy objectives as policy, also at the price of introducing in this indicator some degrees of fuzziness. And this, because especially in the field of innovation, I think that we really have to try to balance very carefully the short-term needs for accountability of the public expenditure with the need of creating an effective support system for firms. Well, obviously, we hope that our analysis will provide some stimuli for the policymakers, as well as for the public policy evaluators, which very often have to deal with these performance-based indicators.